waterways are made up of navigable rivers, lakes, coastal creeks, lagoons, and canals. In many countries, the movement of goods and services along these waterways is one of the oldest means of transporting goods and services from point to point. The inland water transport offers one of the most economical, energy efficient, and environmental friendly means of transporting all types of cargo from place to place. On this episode of Top Talk, the state of Nigeria's waterways is explored with the Managing Director, National Inland Waterways Authority, Dr. George Moghalu. He speaks about the agency's travails, challenges of both Mishaps, port concessions, and plans for the future.
All right, Dr. George Moghalu, welcome to Top Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Just for the sake of clarity, so that everyone is carried along, what really is NIWA about?
NIWA is an agency of the federal government domiciled in the Ministry of Transportation with a clear mandate to make all our waterways all year round navigable to help in building our economy.
All right. Now, we know that there's been some issues in the past, so I just wanted to get some clarification on that. Let's start with the issue with Lagos State and I think Delta State. Some issues about the jurisdiction of NIWA. We have state inland water, trying to say that this is our jurisdiction, it is our right. We saw a court case, the Federal High Court in Lagos, saying that constitutionally it resides with the State Assembly to make laws governing or surrounding that. What's the resolution on that currently? What can we say? How has it developed so far? Is there synergy now?
Let me begin by correcting one impression. And that impression is that NIWA as an organization has no problem with state governments having their local organizations or agencies to manage their waterways. But as to jurisdiction and responsibility, it is clearly designated in the Act establishing NIWA. There are also court cases and judgments attesting to that fact. Put in very simple terms, when a waterway begins and ends in a state, it resides in the authority of the state. When it does not begin and end in a state, it is a federal responsibility. And there are judgments to that effect. So as to jurisdiction, it is clear as what is NIWA's responsibility to the Nigerian public. And we have consistently insisted on enforcing that provision. However, like I said, we have no problem with partnering with any state agency. We have no problem with partnering with, afterwards they are subnationals. They are part of the government. What we are trying to do is we want to build synergy, we want collaboration that will help, one, in developing the waterways, two, in improving on navigation, three, in tapping the entire resources that God has given to us. So we have no problem with any state agency. But when now you want to enforce authority where you don't have the right, then we'll say no, this is where it has to stop.
All right. Taking it further now, away from states and the federal, what about other agencies? I know you've been mentioned in the past of Nigeria Port Authority and the Nigeria Maritime Administration Safety Agency. Somehow some, duties overlapping.
No, our responsibilities are clearly spelled out by law. All right? We are responsible for inland waterways. The NPA has its own responsibility. NIMASA also has its own responsibility. But we are all sister agencies. We are children of one parent. And then we have a forum we created, a platform we created for chief executives of all these parastatals where we meet on a regular basis. Parastatals of the Ministry of Transportation, we meet. And when we get to our meetings, if there are areas we feel there's need for collaboration, why not? We discuss it at that level. It's not something that has any reason to breed any form of disagreement. No, no, no. We don't want that to happen. So we discuss. If there are areas where there are clashes, we also discuss such developments and then resolve them. A few days back or a few months back, MPA and NIWA set up joint committee to address the issue of badging in Nigeria. You see, the bottom line here is, what do we do to improve on navigation? What do we do to tap all the resources that will be of benefit to the Nigerian people? What do we do to bring kind of improvement in the entire operational mechanisms of these various organizations? Don't forget that the basic line, the bottom line of every effort is for the improvement of the conditions of the Nigerian people. Improving on our GDP, providing more opportunities for our people, and improving on the economy. So if that is the bottom line, and if that is where all of us are looking up to or towards, then there's no basis for disagreement. It's a matter of sitting down, because you see, one thing about life is that you can do something, you can be doing something wrong and think you're doing right. But when somebody brings you to speed with it, when somebody explains it to you, you'll be able to understand more. So for us, there may be areas of overlapping functions. There's no doubt as to that fact. But the point is that we also have a platform where we look at these issues and resolve whatever disagreements that may arise.
Oh, that's fair. Now, let's talk about the Act, the NIWA Act. Do you believe, or would you say that it's not restrictive, or it helps you in the full regulation of waterways?
You see, when you call it an act, somebody on the side may not really understand. Just say NIWA law, so that everybody understands it.
True.
The truth about it, you cannot even operate without a law backing you. And that law provides you the limits, what you can do, what you should do, what you cannot do. So it's like our constitution. It's a law establishing NIWA. So it cannot be restrictive. However, just like every other document, it is prone to review depending on circumstance. As we speak now, the NIWA Act is in the National Assembly. Are you getting me? Yeah. It's in the National Assembly for review. So it's a living document. Once this review comes out now, and then Mr. President graciously signs it into law, we start operating by that new one. But as it is today, we have one that is guiding us, that we're working with. And even this new one that is going to come to be, if tomorrow circumstance or need arises for a change, we send it back to the authority that approved it in the first instance, and that's the National Assembly. All right.
As the MD, though, is there something you've noticed, like you said, it's subject to change? In the course of overseeing this agency, are there some things you've seen that you felt would be needed in the amendment?
No, certainly there are things. For example, what they find, there are situations where they find we charge in the year 1977 or 1997, 1998, 1999. If we are charging 100 naira by 1999, it doesn't make sense charging the same 100 naira in 2022. True. It doesn't make sense. That one is a good example. And again, if a fine for an infringement is 5,000 naira in 2000, and then by 2023 it's still 5,000, there's need for a review. If punishment for infringing on one of the laws of NIWA is that somebody has to be punished, you have to look at all those things. And again, there are other agencies. As at the time NIWA was put in place, as at the time we had our first act, as at then there was no Ministry of Solid Minerals that had no control. We, as at then, had control even on sand mining. But because of the Ministry of Solid Minerals has come into place now, that the law creating that ministry also took away the sand mining aspect of our act and transferred it to solid minerals. So that's why I said it's a living document. It is something that changes with time.
All right. And now, I'd like to know the updates on the plans or for concessioning of ports. For those who don't, just in the past few days, there's been heated arguments on social media about what is privatization, what is not privatization, what is PPP. People don't really get the difference. Concessioning of these ports, what would it really, what would change, and what would it achieve?
A lot will change. Like you said, you asked initially, rather, bringing you up to speed
Yes.
on the issue of concessioning. It may interest you to know that barely 2 weeks ago, the agreement for the concessioning of the Onitsha River Port was signed. And barely a week ago, the port has been officially handed over to the concessionaire, Universal Elysium Consortium. They've taken over the port. You see, what that brings to the table, for example, initial money government is going to receive is 4 billion. And thereafter another 30 billion in 23 years will go to government. But most importantly is that we are bringing the private sector to play a key role in the management and operation of the port. Like we all know, for more than 3 decades, Onitsha River Port was completed. It's a world-class port, built to standard with all modern equipment. Later in 2012, it was refurbished, but it has not been put to active use. In fact, the first commercial barge that came to Onitsha River Port came under my watch in 2000. I was appointed in 2019. That was the first time the commercial barge. And we're talking about a port that was completed over 3 decades ago. Now, by bringing in the private sector, we are opening it up to very prompt activity because the investor, the concessionaire, will not want to waste his money. And he saw the potentials, or rather they saw the potentials that are bound in that investment before they can now come to concession it from government, to own it for 30 years, to manage it, to run it. And they're going to run it for profit. In doing this, it provides another opportunity for employment opportunities. And then the port, for example, Onitsha will impact massively on the economic activities of the immediate environment. Don't forget, like I've always said, that our roads are not designed to carry the pressure they are carrying today. In civilized climes, bulk cargo is either moved by water or by rail. And I also believe very strongly that a very active Onitsha River Port, a very active Barrow Port, a very active Uguta River Port, a very active Lokoja River Port certainly will help in easing the congestion we have in Lagos. And the truth is that if you look at the volume of containerized items that come to Lagos, about 60 to 65, if not more, percent of the containerized items that come to Lagos port end in Onitsha and Aba in the southeast region. And what happens today is that let us assume that we have 5 million containers coming into Lagos destined for the southeast in a year. What that translates to is that 10 million trailers will be on the road. 5 million trailers carrying the containers and 5 million trailers returning the empty. Our roads are not designed to carry this weight. But an active Onitsha River Port, an active channel moving consignment from Lagos to Onitsha, moving consignment from Lagos to Guta, moving consignment even from Lagos to Burutu, Lagos to Lokoja, Lagos to Barrow. When that is active, those consignments that will go by road will not end up going by water. We will save our infrastructure, we will reduce the pressure on our roads, and we decongest the ports in Lagos. But the activity in Onitsha and these river ports that are in the hinterland has helped in achieving this objective. So there's quite a lot we are going to gain as a people by the concessioning. All right? And then that's why we, as I speak to you, we have received unsolicited proposals for concessioning of Barrow Port, even for the ports that are not yet completed, Uguta, Lokoja. We have received proposals because they are desirous. They see the potentials in it. So by the time we get the private sector fully involved in our activities, it's going to be economically beneficial to everybody.
Indeed. What you've said now, you've painted a picture of being very friendly towards the private sector.
Yes.
So I don't know if you can respond to some accusations that were made a while back by some private operators, the organized private sector players, through their national body, that's the Association of Tourist Boat Operators and Water Transporters of Nigeria. They were speaking about operational guidelines and that it's a bit strict, or to an extent, as to discourage them, and that the government really just wants to continue that monopoly on water issues of waterways and all that. We're talking about restrictions on their vessels and how it should be and all that. How do you respond to this?
Let me begin by asking, when was this?
It's a couple of, let's say, a year or so ago.
No. If it's a year or two, then it may not be correct. Because we have tried to create an enabling environment. We have created a friendly environment to the private sector. We've tried all we can do to make sure we ease all the bottlenecks. When I was engaging the concessioning processes for nature, they can tell you in all honesty that I engaged aggressively the chambers of commerce, both in Lagos, both in Onitsha. I engaged the Importers Association, had meetings with them, because I realized the importance of these agencies, these organizations. You can't talk about movement of cargo without involving the importer of this consignment, because they are the ones who determines where their goods will go to. You can't tell an importer, oh, you must use water. You can't tell an importer, your consignment must come to Lagos, or it must come to Calabar, or it must come to Warri, it must come to Portharcourt. No, it is the choice of the importer himself. So we engage them to convince them, to get their buy-in, so that they can see it from the same prism where we are seeing it from. I also engage the chambers of commerce. For us, what we are doing, when somebody says we have restrictions on vessels, yes, it can be an all-commerce game, because if you do that, you expose the industry to unnecessary and avoidable risk. I will not be in charge of an organization that will allow you use any vessel, whether it is qualified to be on the waterway or not. Use any vessel you see, operate on the waterway, because when you are creating an unfortunate scenario, you're exposing the people to danger, you're not even helping the business yourself. So we understand the tourism potentials. There are passenger ferry boats. There are cargo boats. Are you getting me there? But this must be separated. There are also barges that are used to move cargo. There are also water ambulances and things like this. But we're insisting that if it is passenger service you want to render, you get the right passenger boats, you get the right ferry, which we as an organization will certify, because we have certified mariners who must certify these vessels before they are allowed to ply on the waterway. Because if you make it an all-commerce game, you expose the people to unnecessary and avoidable risk. And we don't want to do that. So if that is the crime we have committed, I have no apologies for insisting that standards must be kept. I have no apologies for that. But it is not intended to frustrate our partners, because we see them as partners, but rather to encourage them, to make sure that anybody, an outside investor, for example, you can't bring an outside investor to come and invest in a business that has no standards. They will not come. They will be scared. But if they know, oh, this agency insists that standards must be kept, they will come. They will do business with you.
Yeah, that's fair. Now let's move over to the issue of accidents. I'm talking about boat mishaps that we've been having. I think we've had a couple in the span of some years. I would like to get your analysis on it, the causes and your response, the NIWA's response, the solutions that are being rolled out.
All right. We're very concerned. Let me begin by saying that for us at NIWA, it's always very saddening to hear of a boat mishap. It's quite painful, because we're talking about loss of life, talking about loss of property. So we feel very sad about it, particularly just this one that just happened. But at the same time also, let me use this platform to remind the people, the boat operators, the passengers, that they also have a responsibility. Even the media, everyone has a responsibility. For example, this one that just happened in Mina, the report in the papers is that there was both Mishaps in Mina, 50 people died. And that is not right. By the time investigation was conducted by the Accident Investigation Department of NIWA and the Niger State government, it turned out that 24 persons drowned. 23 persons were rescued alive. 1 person died. Unfortunate as it may be that 1 person died, because no life is more important than the other. Look at the disparity, look at the story. How do you reconcile it with the headline banner in most of the social media? Oh, accident in Niger, 50 persons died. And some people have already started, oh, get the head of the MD of NIWA and cut it off. But be that as it may, these are part of the challenges of office. I don't mind. But for us in NIWA, we are doing everything. And I'll use this opportunity to let you know what we are doing. Apart from the fact that by the time I took office, we set up sensitization teams from the Corporate Affairs Department that have been going from one area office to the other, sensitizing our people on the need to follow laid down protocols. You can't explain it that somebody will willingly enter in a boat without wearing life jacket. These are the situations we find ourselves. Meanwhile, NIWA as an organization has been busy distributing life jackets across the country, letting them understand that life jackets have lifespan. For a lot of passengers, they don't know that life jackets expire. And an expired life jacket is like wearing a jacket, t-shirt, and entering the water, because it will serve no purpose in case of any emergency. But we keep getting the people to understand the need for you not to enter the water without being properly kitted. NIWA, as an organization, has task forces. NIWA police, everybody is aware of the fact there is a ban for you to operate a vessel after 6:30 p.m. or before 6 a.m. in the morning. Statistics have shown that 90% of the accidents that have happened on our waterways in this country either happen in the night or early hours of the morning. And what that says is that the vessels that are on the waterway that are involved in these accidents, that operate at these illegal times, do not have night navigational aids. And there is no way you can operate successfully a vessel that has no night navigational aid in the night on the hours of the morning. We keep going around, we keep talking to them, we keep reminding them. NIWA has gone to the extent of certifying boats. You will notice that most of the boats now that have been certified have plate numbers, license numbers on them to show that those vessels are certified. The uncertified ones, we impound them. Some we destroy. Some that are repairable, we ask that you go and repair it and bring it up to standard. Because there is a minimum standard that is acceptable. There are some jetties that are banned, shut down. You find boat operators, some going to use those jetties that are shut down, that are closed in the night when nobody will see them. At times, they don't even go to any jetty at all. They go to waterfront, put their boat, and people will enter. A good number of the accidents that happen today are caused by overloading. But you cannot overload in a certified jetty. And that is where NIWA has upped the ante in building new jetties. I know since I came into office, at least we have done 5 new jetties. And as we speak now, there's a procurement process going on for 2 other new ones. And then we are renovating and rebuilding all our jetties to make sure that at all times they are up to standard and speed. NIWA, as an organization, we have already concluded 9 search and rescue stations across the country. As we are talking now, procurement process is ongoing for additional 3. And because all the resources we need, we don't have them. As resources are available, we keep replicating these programs like search and rescue stations and what have you across the country. NIWA as an organization, we are laying buoys. We have concluded from Lagos Badagry axis. We have already started from Upper Benue down towards Onitsha. We are laying buoys. These are navigational aids to ease navigation. Today we know if there's any challenge NIWA has, is the water hyacinths that grow on our waterways. These are plants that grow seasonally. So even if you clear all the water hyacinths on Nigeria's waterway this year, next year they will come again. I even understand that they come from outside the country. And when they come, you have a responsibility. And that's why if you check our records, at least let me speak from since I came into office, every year we clear water hyacinth. Every year we remove water floating debris. Our people are careless with the management of our water resources. We get refuse, we throw into the water. If you take stone and put into the gutter, water won't carry it. And by the time these places are silted, what follows is that water cannot be contained. Water will seek its way. The next thing is the banks are flooded. So we continue doing these things. It is our responsibility. We have to remove wrecks because there are instances you have challenges like about, for example, in Yauri area, they don't have, most of their wrecks are not the normal wrecks of abandoned vessels or whatever, but there are rocks there. We're undergoing procurement process now to get rock blasters to go and blast the rocks on the Yauri waterway because a good number of the accidents that happen there is a consequence of that. What will NIWA do in that regard other than removing the rock? We can't refuse the rock from growing there because the rock may have even been there before NIWA was created.
Yeah. So let me just cut in there just to maximize time. One of the solutions I know that you've also rolled out, or you are set to roll out, is the training of drivers.
No, not even set to roll out. We have started the training of drivers. I went to commission, there was one I went to open in Badagry. We trained 450 boat operators.
Yeah, but people
There's one in Wari because we train them and license them so that people don't just go and carry. We have task forces. We've set. Lagos is working on it, is working. We're trying to replicate that in the north. They can stop a boat operator in the middle of the water and ask for license.
Yeah, but some persons are now wondering, perhaps prospective drivers also, is the training free? Do they pay for it? Is it accessible? How do they get about it?
I must be honest with you, the training is not free, but we have made it very minimal. We have subsidized it. You see, one thing about totally free is that once it's totally free, nobody takes it serious. That's the truth. But when somebody puts in, no matter how small, there's a level of commitment. Are you getting me? But we have made it so cheap that will not be a reason.
Can you let us know the range?
It's less than 5,000. Even if, like we said, there are even situations where if we think that the best way to get them to get involved is by making it free, we are willing to make it free. Because we are talking about human lives. We are talking about making the waterways all year round navigable, so that it can be a certified alternative means of transportation. So anything we will do as an organization to encourage it, we will. We are training. We're very serious about training.
Yeah,
Portharcourt we have a school, in Wari we have a school to train boat operators.
So what about registration? We hear that it's now online.
Yes.
Is there still a physical alternative?
Yes.
Okay.
We made it in such a way that you have the two choices. But we have online registration of vessels, inspection, certification, and registration online. We also, it is still possible you can also get your vessel registered physically Like now, we have even gone up to setting up a team that goes to boat yards. You know, we have a lot of boat yards in this country. And I'm proud to say that a good number of the vessels that NIWA has today are made in Nigeria. We even have a team now that go to certify boat yards to make sure that it's properly, that what we want is what we get. Let me also tell you something interesting. In the procurement process now, 2 of the contractors who want to get the job from us has proposed to now build the boats in our yard. That they will do it in our dockyard in Lokoja. So that we want to see them do it there. So we are going to the extent of now setting up a boat yard within our dockyard so that we can build vessels ourselves. Gradually, from building small boats, in the next five years, we should be able to build big vessels, at least passenger vessels. Because there are areas like this, Niger, I'm very concerned about it because this is since I became MD of NIWA, this is either second or third accident that has happened in Niger. So it's giving me great concern. I've sent out a team now to go and study the problem. The report I had from the one that happened in Yauri is that from experience, even we gave them vessels, we gave them passenger vessels, 2 32-seater vessels we gave to Yauri. But what we have found out is that what they actually need there for effectiveness is big passenger boats that has more capacity for cargo than passengers because of their market days. So now we are getting passenger boats, big passenger boat that will suit the environment for Yauri. We're also trying to replicate the same for Niger because these 2 last accidents that happened in Niger happened in the same area. And the one previously from the records I saw, the accident that happened there before. So I'm sure we since we want to address the menace holistically, that we also have to provide a vessel there. Despite the sensitizations we're doing there, despite the life jackets we've sent there, I want to see if I can find resources and then get a vessel and send there to Mina.
All right, now, just to round off in a few seconds, you already mentioned the activities you carry out yearly in terms of water hyacinth and all that. I'm interested in the environmental aspect of all of this. Like you said, truly, Nigerians or persons generally tend to take liberties with water. You know, they believe, you know, whatever goes in will find its way, so that all things can be dumped in and all that. Is that something that is a concern of NIWA, or is it something about the sister agencies? Are you making collaborations with others in that specifically environmental aspects of the waters?
You must understand that majority of this floating debris and issue of refuse management is in the inland waterway. And we're taking it frontally. Apart from the issue of sensitization, we have been removing it on a regular basis. We're even talking with a team, a South African team that came here and did a study on how they can provide us a vessel that will be designated for that alone. We're trying to work out the modalities, whether it's to be leased to NIWA, whether it's to be sold to NIWA, or whether they will come and operate it themselves. And then we now look at it. But I insisted that before I go into serious negotiation with them, that I want them to come and use it first and let me see it work. That once I'm satisfied with the operation, then I can now make the effort to get involved. So we are concerned about it, and we are doing quite a lot to make sure that we resolve that on a more permanent basis. On a more permanent basis, and that's what we are doing.
All right, Dr. Moghalu, thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure as always.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.